a leader that wasn't insecure. So, right, a lot of times in leadership, you should be looking at replacing yourself, right? If you're a good leader, you're looking at building up your leadership team to be your successor. And so that's what I was afforded. I was afforded an organization that poured into me as much professionally as they did personally and cared about me both personally. I lead by not wanting to be the smartest person at the table. I tell all my teams that if I'm the smartest person at the table, we're all at the wrong table. And so I really lean on, right, their expertise and whatever that looks like to help stand up the organization and making sure that we have those same compassionate, dedicated, skilled people in place to pull their weight. If you have someone that wants to work for you, then there is no limit to what you both will be able to accomplish together. So I think being fully transparent at all times, I think not being afraid to acknowledge any failure that you may have, not being afraid to fail forward. So I always tell my team, if we're trying something and it fails, guess what? We're failing forward because look what we've learned from taking that risk.
Welcome back to an episode here on the Heart and Hustle podcast. Another great leader with some great pictures. Najla, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Because we're going to start off here because we're talking about the pictures. We got Michelle Obama, you got Beyonce, but there's one missing, Oprah. And what I just want to know why those three ladies actually, not just representation, like clearly, but why? Why did you choose those three ladies that have truly made an impact in their own spaces?
I think for just the embodiment of what Black Girl Magic is, what embodies a strong Black woman that has no limits, no barriers, whether it is in education, like with Michelle Obama and what she was able to accomplish and how she stood behind Barack to allow him to take the biggest office, to Beyonce and her dedication and commitment to her craft. And it is just like, if you pour into something with your all, the world will reward you. And I just see that in each one of their paths, whether it's Michelle Obama, Beyonce, or Oprah. If you stay the course and you do the work, you will be rewarded. And there is no limit to what a Black woman can do in this society. And so they just speak to me every single day.
Okay. I feel like there's somebody that should be on that wall that's a little underrated. And I actually just seen this conversation with her and Oprah on The View, and it was Whoopi Goldberg. Not realizing what Whoopi has done, right, in her respectful lane as well, but also starting with Oprah years and years ago, but to see how they both kind of grew in their own spaces.
Yeah.
It is cool to just see Black women in these spaces and being represented the way they are, right? People love these no matter what color. But I'll tell you, I think there's also when people see those type of Black women, they think they're not normal. This is the average Black woman, right? And I'll tell you, I'm Latino, my wife is Black, and I would always remember, like, you're not black, you're black white. And she says, what do you mean by that? I said, the way that you speak, right? And she said, the way that I speak proper, right? Like, to be quite frank, I think we're not educated enough in the spaces, right? When we go back into what's happening in our schools, are we educated enough to not make ignorant comments the way that I made? What is your thoughts on that? I can imagine you heard that before.
I mean, I would agree, but I just think it goes to what we are fed in social media and the media in general, to assume that any race or gender is less than what they saturate us with, right? And so I just think it is a ploy for us as Black and brown people not to appreciate our magnificence, right? And everything that comes with that, and how we can be as multifaceted as any other race can be. And so it is just continuously educating ourselves and then continuously having opportunities to see, like you said, these dynamic Black women in every space. So it's not the one-off. It's not just the Michelle Obama, right? It's not just the Beyoncés. It's people every day in real life that are changing the game every single day.
And I can imagine that as you grew up, right, you're growing up, there's things that you're being fed that today become incorrect. There's opportunities you didn't know existed for you. But now at the level, talk about your level, the title, and the organization that you're with, you guys are changing what that actually looks like, right? You're giving opportunity to anyone that actually deserves that opportunity, but also to those that didn't even know they deserved that opportunity. What, can you tell us your title and what you guys are doing at Rock Creek and kind of go down that lane?
Sure, sure. So I am the CEO of the Rock Creek Foundation. We're a nonprofit organization headquartered in Silver Spring, Maryland. And we serve individuals that have either intellectual and developmental disability or a severe and persistent mental health diagnosis. And so opportunities for individuals that have lived experiences in those populations can be super limited because of what society feeds, right, us to believe them to be. The stigma potentially behind what that looks like when you have such a diagnosis. So across, whether it is from what I've been experienced growing up or to what I do every single day, is not limiting opportunity, right? And so again, if we go back to our earlier thought about, these Black women not being one-offs, right? It's about what opportunities, right, were they given to excel? What opportunities were they given to see that I can do that too? I can be that too. This is not a one-off. I can achieve these things. And so I put that into the work that I do every day with the populations that we serve, that there's no limit to what you can achieve if you can be given the opportunity to explore it, be given the space, right, to authentically say, take the risk to say, what is it about this that attracts me, and have someone there to support you through it. And I think that's the number one thing that we do here at Rock Creek. We believe in allowing the individuals we support to choose to let their lives speak for them, and whatever that is meaningful for them. And our staff are just here to support them through that process to explore what that means for them so that they can achieve their own personal goals.
What get you into this space? Got to be a why you decided I'm gonna take the highest seat possible in this organization.
It was opportunity. Honestly, when I started this work or went down this career path, so I am a licensed clinician, and I always wanted to serve in some capacity. I wanted to give back to society, right? And so graduating college and getting my master's and sitting for my exam and all those things, I really wasn't clear on what that actually was. And so I was given the opportunity to be employed by Rock Creek, right? I started off as an employment consultant, so literally hitting the ground running, feet to the pavement, carving out jobs for individuals that we supported, real work for real people, real community, right? So that's what also made Rock Creek stand out, is that we believe that the individuals we supported, regardless of their diagnosis or their cognitive capabilities, that they could be active, contributing members of society, and they could be gainfully employed. And so that's kind of how I started here at Rock Creek. And now 18 years later, to be seated as a CEO, it was just opportunity given to me. It was just someone seated in positions above mine that saw something in me that I maybe didn't even see in myself. And because I had leaders that really believed in cultivating our own leaders from within, that's a number one cultural aspect that we have across our organization, is growing our own leaders, and a leader that wasn't insecure. So, right, a lot of times in leadership, you should be looking at replacing yourself, right? If you're a good leader, you're looking at building up your leadership team to be your successor. And so that's what I was afforded. I was afforded an organization that poured into me as much professionally as they did personally, and cared about me both personally and professionally. And when they saw opportunity, or they saw a staff member taking that initiative, they rewarded it. And so simply, it was the opportunity. Never in a million years did I ever think starting here in 2007, that I would be the president and CEO of this organization, or even a COO, and how my career progressed, right? From an employment consultant to an assistant director to a director to the chief of operations and corporate compliance. Like, I never even imagined it. It was just
Yeah.
the opportunity and what someone else saw in me.
And I'll kind of even rephrase that. You said someone gave you an opportunity, but you worked for that opportunity.
Oh,
No one
yeah.
give you anything. You know what I mean? Like you just mentioned, I came in boots on the ground, and I started at ground zero. And for a lot of people, that's what it looks like. Is that we start at ground zero, and we start to go through doors, right? Some doors we don't know what's on the other side, and we realize there is opportunity for us on the other side. We got to work towards it. No one's giving us handouts, right? So I just want to kind of, for those leaders that are aspiring to be in these spaces, no one is going to give you anything. You have to put in the work. And I ask you, let's go back a little bit before even getting into this space. Who were you when you were young? What did you want to do? What was, you said you didn't know this space existed. So who's Najla? What did she want to do when she was a young little girl?
Oh my goodness. Najla, as a young little girl, I think my biggest inspiration or role model was my aunt on my father's side, his youngest sibling. We all went to Catholic school growing up. It's crazy. We were Pentecostal on Sundays, but we all went to Catholic church, Catholic school. So she graduated top of her class and went on to Cornell University, and then later on to Howard Law School. And so my father allowed us to really follow her in that. We went to Cornell to visit her. We went to Howard Law to visit her. She took us around DC. So seeing that coming from Syracuse, New York, which was 10% black and brown at the time, it was like mind blowing. And to see her in that space and achieving such astronomical goals, for me, I was like, okay, well, let's go, right? And so she was like my biggest role model. And I think at that time, being so young and so impressionable, I'm like, I'm gonna be a lawyer. I'm going to Georgetown. Like, this is just it. I'm gonna be a lawyer, all the things, right? And so, you go through high school and maybe your grades aren't where they're supposed to be. And I have a really, really close cousin, and we said, okay, well, we'll go to Spelman and Morehouse and we'll do this track or whatever, right? And so let's take the entrance exams. Well, he didn't get into Morehouse. I got into Spelman, but I'm like, I'm not going there alone. Too far from home. Let's go to Howard. So I decided to go to Howard. Right before I made that decision of what I should major in, there was a career fair at my high school. And there was a psychologist that attended the career fair, and she was giving us insight into a very complex clinical case that she was dealing with, where she was treating a client that thought they were pregnant or were hallucinating a pregnancy, but their body was responding physically as if they were really pregnant. So their stomach was growing, all the things. And I was like, what? Your mind could impact your behavior, or your behavior could impact your mind, all the things. I need to understand that more. And so I decided to go into psychology from there. And then as I got into psychology, and you're in school and you're in grad school, and you're like, well, I need to make money in this, and I need to find a way to make this a lucrative career, because my mother is like, you have 4 years. Okay, and so don't change your major and don't do all the things. So I had to really find a way to make it practical. And so when I was looking at, going to the career centers and what was next, it was the master's level degree and then the clinical license. And I kind of went down that path. Again, never thought that I would work in a space of IDD or even severe and complex mental illness. I thought, okay, I'll be a therapist and I'll have this cute office, with a couch, which I do have a couch. I don't practice anymore, but housewives and, depressed housewives, anxiety disorders and things like that. But when I got into the space and, like you said, boots to the ground and what's available for someone freshly out of grad school with a fresh clinical license, and you need externship hours, it's kind of like, these opportunities, these organizations like Rock Creek that's doing really, really hard clinical work is typically where you will start. And so I started off at Rock Creek, and here we are. I fell in love with the population. I fell in love with the individuals that we were supporting, and I kind of never looked back.
It's actually very surprising that you got into mental health so early, because in I feel like in our communities of brown and black people, we don't talk about it, right? Like, what was it, that lady that was of color that kind of was representation? Like, I don't feel like there was a lot of people in that space, or we don't talk about mental health enough. Now, probably more, but what
I
were you
just
thinking in that moment?
I mean, growing up,
Or
I
you
just,
didn't even care?
I mean, honestly, growing up and what I was exposed to, I just knew it was necessary.
Yeah, yeah.
I come from
We
like
needed it. That's
my
what we
mom's
did.
a nurse, my sisters are nurses, so I come
Okay,
from a
okay.
space where I think just the medical field is highly respected in whatever capacity it
Yeah.
is. And so I knew like blood and all that was not for me, but I knew I would be
Facts.
in some type of healthcare space or giving back to the community. And even with my mom's story and my sisters being in nursing school when I was growing up, like they all had to do like the psych clinical and things like that. So they would come home and speak about that, severe and persistent mental health. But for me, I just always I saw it as a need, really. And what I was growing up in, kind of like what I was exposed to, I knew that what I was experiencing or what my dad or my uncles or people were experiencing, or had experienced even in their childhood, which made them react to how I experienced them, I never really thought it was super healthy. And so I didn't want to potentially just tag them as you are fully responsible for X versus what did you go through to get you
Yeah.
here. And so for me, I can't even answer that. It was a given that it was real. Mental health from my childhood was always a real thing that people experienced. And so I really never was stagnated by that stigma.
Yeah, yeah. That's like God just put it in your heart, right? Like simple as this. Sometimes we don't know why we do things. Like God just put it in my heart, and that's what I went with. You know, I felt right, and we see the other side. Obviously, the other side has been very successful for you.
Right.
Rock Creek, though, if someone was to walk into Rock Creek, they need some assistance. What does that look like from that journey from going through the door for the first time or reaching out on a call? What does that actually look like?
So that just looks like you said, whether it's walking through our front door at our numerous, office locations, or making a call, or being referred from a hospital setting, a prison system, the school system, etc. It would just be a simple intake call to make sure that you are potentially a right fit or eligible for our services, if you have the right insurance, if you are going to be private pay, etc., what type of extenuating circumstances you may be. Is it an emergency based situation or something that we could potentially schedule a referral for in the next few days. And so typically if all of that is aligned, then a referral or an intake assessment will happen. Well, you will meet with the assessment team. We will go through your past history, your current needs, etc., to determine which of our services is a right fit. And then we will go through whether it is in your insurance to get you enrolled in our services, or a lot of the individuals we support are funded through the Developmental Disabilities Administration or the Behavioral Health Administration. So determining what pathway it is for your funding, and then what services one is best aligned to support whatever treatment plan goals you have or aspirational goals you have. And then we typically will go from there with where your placement would be.
You mentioned just services. How many programs and services do you guys actually offer?
So we have, like, I would say 3 core pillars of services that include numerous service lines underneath. But we do community-based residential rehabilitation services. So that is group home settings, where we have homes throughout Montgomery County and St. Mary's County and Prince George's County. And those houses are staffed based on the needs of the individuals that reside in them. But we help you manage your entire life. So if that is managing doctor's appointments, whether that's somatic or psychiatric, if that is, shopping for food, cooking, taking your medications on time. We have nurse staff that support medication administration and staff that support that. So that is helping through all of your activities of daily living, basically.
Wow.
And then we have a meaningful day program where we provide services throughout the day. And that's an array of day program services, from therapeutic groups to helping someone increase their skill base. So whether that could be dressing for success or learning how to navigate personal relationships, coping skill development, etc. There's a laundry list of services that we provide during in our Meaningful Day services. And then supported employment, I would say, is our third pillar of services, again, where we help people from the very beginning. So whether you've never had a job, we help you build a resume, we help you volunteer if you need to volunteer to build your resume, to exploring what you're even interested in doing. Maybe you've never had a job, so what does career exploration look like, to helping someone learn how to interview, so interviewing skills, role playing, to literally boots to the ground, helping you, supporting you find a job. So from acquiring a job to maintaining the job, we do it 100%. And then we have affordable housing programs where we assist people with getting attached to voucher programs so that they could transition from our group homes, let's just say, to independent living in environments of their choice. And then we support them in their own apartments, their caregiver apartments, family homes, etc. There's so many services that we provide that are intertwined in those three main pillars of the services that we have here at Rock Creek.
You guys do a lot. How many years have you been the president now?
I've been the president. I think this is my 8th year, 2017. I believe I've been the president since 2017. I started in 2007 as an employment consultant, so it was my job to go out to corporations and local businesses to carve out jobs for the individuals we support and really sell them and pitch them on why individuals that we support are great employees, right? And so I did that for a number of years, and then I became the director of day and therapeutic services. So I focus all on building up our Meaningful Day programs and all of the subsets of services underneath that. And then I became the chief of operations and corporate compliance. So I was responsible for all of our operations, as well as making sure we were compliant with state, federal regulations, as well as our accreditation bodies. And then once I did that, I was approached by the board to interview for the position as the president and CEO, which was a huge risk for me. I'm like, I'm good, right here.
Comfortable. You were comfortable.
Yeah, I was comfortable. I was coasting. I was like, it's fine. And it's a very lonely place to be in when you really can't blame anyone else for your success or failure, right? And so I was like, I'm fine right here. But yeah. I spearheaded the organization's first CARF accreditation. And during CARF, you are assigned surveyors. And as the chief of operations, I was assigned the admin surveyor. That person comes in and basically surveys your HR, your finance department, your board, etc. And she was from Canada, and she was a CEO of an organization, behavioral health organization in Canada. And so I was just talking to her about, this opportunity or whatever. And she's like, well, do you want to train your boss? And I said, no. And she was like, well, then I think this is your job, because unless you want to train your boss, and allow them to get all the accolades or the success of what you already know, then I suggest that you apply for the job. And she's like, the only advice I could give you is the one indication of a good leader or a good CEO is that they have a good executive leadership team, right? So if you have a good CFO, if you have a good HR director, if you have a good, then you're fine. You don't need to worry about doing all the jobs. Your number one job is to make sure you have the right people in place. And so from that conversation, I said, well, maybe I can do this job if it's that simple as finding the right people.
Was it that simple though?
I think it was, honestly,
Yeah?
because
Okay.
I lead by not wanting to be the smartest person at the table. I tell all my teams that if I'm the smartest person at the table, we're all at the wrong table. And so I really lean on, their expertise and whatever that looks like to help stand up the organization and making sure that we have those same compassionate, dedicated, skilled people in place to pull their weight.
If the Heart and Hustle podcast has ever sparked any idea or made you think differently, do us a favor. Make sure to guys share this, post it on LinkedIn, or even text that nonprofit friend that you just have. Whatever works, this is what keeps the conversation going and allows us to just grow this community together. Seriously, we appreciate you. What are some of the values you live by now as president and CEO? I can imagine there's values you live by. One of the things I love about yourself and some other leaders I'll talk to is just how authentic we could be, right? I think it matters so much when we talk about having an executive leadership team. If you're not authentically you, they feel it and they also mimic that. What are some of the values that you live by though?
So I think that is one, being very authentic. I think it's being super honest, being very transparent to say, I messed up. This was a poor decision. Let's pivot. Not being afraid, right? I think to be vulnerable in front of your executive leadership team, I think that matters because at the end of the day, right, people really want to work for their leader. If you have someone that wants to work for you, then there is no limit to what you both will be able to accomplish together. So I think being fully transparent at all times, I think not being afraid to acknowledge any failure that you may have, not being afraid to fail forward. So I always tell my team, if we're trying something and it fails, guess what? We're failing forward because look what we've learned from taking that risk. So I think just being authentically myself, being super transparent, and being vulnerable to admit when, you know, it may have been the wrong call are some values that I live by.
And I love that you say that, fail forward. Sometimes failing hurts. It doesn't feel good, but in reality is what do we learn from those moments? Every L is not a loss, it's a lesson. And if we dwell on the negativity or dwell on that loss, we don't really get to see what success came out of that. So I love that you kind of put that mindset into your team. You mentioned a little earlier that your representation was your aunt, right? Your kids now, you're the representation. What do they? I know what you want, what you took out of your aunt, but what do you want the kids to take from you, from everything that you're doing? I think it's amazing. You're a woman in leadership of color. Doesn't happen often, and I've done over 200 conversations last year, and believe me, very small percentage were a woman of color. What does that mean to you now for your kids? What do you want them to see?
Again, I think that anything's possible, right? If, to your earlier point, if you do the work, you have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready when that opportunity comes your way. And so I just want them to know that if you consistently put in the hard work, if you follow your passion, whatever that passion is, I believe you will be successful in whatever success looks like for you, right? There's a lot of these videos and memes going around that's like, I'm rich because I get to see my 96-year-old grandmother comb her hair, or I get to see X, right? And I think it is those values that I want my daughters to see. This is my path, right? And I want you to be able to know that my expectation is you go even further than me because of the path I've already laid for them. But just having them follow a passion, be driven, be hardworking, be good human beings, I think for me is the biggest thing that I want my daughters to take away from what I've accomplished, and not listen to what society says about them or tries to define them as or put them in a box. It's like you stay your course and you be authentic to yourself.
Yeah, I actually heard a story recently that you say that, be authentic to yourself and don't let people tell you the lane you should be in. This leader was doing well, had a really good job. He was at the top of the mountain, success and all. His wife asked him one question: is this who you want to be for the rest of your life? He said, I was a Jewish man, and through life, I was told this was my lane. When she asked me that question, I realized I wasn't living authentically me. I end up divorced. I end up almost taking my life. Like, how crazy. Somebody asked him a question. It goes back to people in our lives are there to either help us or hurt us. And that moment, that question was really there to help him. And he didn't see it at that moment. He was hitting rock bottom. He was failing, and someone gave him the opportunity to chase passion and purpose. And when he found that, because you continue to mention it, it's passion and purpose. When he found that, now you talk to him, and he's so happy. And he's working with vets. He's not a vet himself, but he's like, to know that I'm in a space where I get to help not just people that were in the military, but their families
Mm-hmm.
see and reach potentials they haven't reached, that fills my cup, Ephraim.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to what you're saying. It's like, hey, I was never really chasing that paycheck. At one point, maybe that was a thought,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all been about the passion and purpose I've had through my whole life that led you to here. Being patient, right? That's another thing. Being consistent, getting uncomfortable. There's so many things you throw out there. So those that are watching, it's like, this just doesn't happen overnight. This happens with work. This happens battling imposter syndrome. How many times, by the way, did you tell yourself, am I even really cut out to be CEO president? You still
Every
think that
day.
this day?
Every single day. Every single day, to your point, I think it's something that I struggle with, being a black woman in an industry that doesn't look like me. Even when I'm in normal meetings that I have on a routine basis with stakeholders or other provider organizations like Rock Creek across Montgomery County, it's like I may be the only black woman at the table. So it's something that I consistently have to reframe in my thinking, to say, yes, I deserve to be at this table. I deserve to be seated at this table. And so I think it's something that we will continuously deal with because of what society, again, portrays that we are not capable of achieving or non-deserving, to be at certain tables. And so it's something that I deal with every single day, to your point. And it's just, it's our experience, right? And so when I am in spaces with other black and brown people, I make sure that I let them know I see you, right? And I am here. And if I could be a mentor of any in any capacity, like that's something that I actually want to live by. So it's like you were saying about that gentleman, it's like, what is your impact? What impact do you want to have? What is your legacy? And it sounds like because he had to have that existential moment, he realized that he wasn't on the path that was self-fulfilling for him, and he wasn't actually leaving the impact that he wanted. So
Yeah.
it's
But
every
those
day.
moments, yeah, those moments though, when someone tells you something like that, and I can imagine you had lot of those, it allows us to feel seen, heard, allows us to see, wait a minute, there's so much more to life. One of the best things that I've heard and I still carry with me was I was 19 or maybe 20 years old, very young, early 20s, and a gentleman, chief developers officer of Subway, that had his own life, and he was an alcoholic, and people gave him a chance, and now he became, huge up in this company. He says, Ephraim, you're a rock star. And if my son grows up to be anything like you, I'll be a happy father. I'm a young 20-year-old that was facing sexual abuse, adoption, feeling unloved. I left my mom's house and said, you know what, you never got to worry about me, right? Because that's just where I was at mentally in my life. And because when I heard that, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a rock star? Wait a minute, somebody at that level seen me? Oh man, that means like the sky's the limit. And then I've heard recently, stop saying the sky's the limit. You got to look at that furthest planet and say that's the limit, right? Because the sky, it's so much more than past the sky. So those things that people tell us, I've heard someone tell me, a friend tell me, he's a mentor actually, he says, Ephraim, if you keep calling me with the same crap every year, if you still doing the same thing at the end of the year, we can't be friends. I took it as, Ephraim, you're making a lot of excuses for yourself. You got to do something better, right? If not, and that's how I took it, but not everybody takes it that way, right? But it is people in our lives, whether it's our families, whether it's teachers or friends,
Yes.
that we need to be real with us. That's why yes man doesn't always work. What kind of people do you look for when you talk about leaders, executive team? Can't be that yes man or that yes woman.
No, it's always someone, to your point, that challenges your perspective, right? And I see that even in my executive leadership team. Again, I don't want to be the smartest person at the table, and I want you to challenge what I think may be the right path. Like, let's have a courageous conversation, right, is what I like to call them, right? Because you never know, to your point, what is out there, right, if you don't have someone to challenge your way of thinking. So what I look for to be around people in my circles is people that is doing much better things or accomplishing much greater accomplishments that I could consider myself having achieved or even achieving. Again, I think it goes back to exposure, right? If you don't see something, you can't dream for it. You can't dream for it. You can't even envision yourself being somewhere. It's just something simple as, I don't know, a first class seat on an airplane, right? If you don't see it, if you don't see people like you seated there, then it's something that you won't even consider achieving. So if, again, I think you need to surround yourself with people that are going to challenge you, challenge your way of thinking, force you to think in different ways from different perspectives, but also achieving things or exposing you to things, to different tables, to different groups of people that you may not have ever had access to. And so again, if you're the smartest person in your friend group, if you're the most accomplished in your friend group, then I just think you're in the wrong group.
Yeah, get to a new group. You outgrew that group. It's time to move on.
Correct.
With almost 20 years in this organization, 8 of those years being president and CEO, 2025 just ended. Can imagine a lot of success has happened. We can talk about that a little bit, but what's 2026 look like for you, right? Because we're always talking about getting better, evolving. What does that look like now?
It looks like really, really, one, I think honestly, it looks like sustainability, right? For our industry right now, behavioral health, mental health, our services, our healthcare system, Medicaid, right, is just under attack at the federal level, and being super scrutinized and being painted with this broad stroke of a brush that is not honest, right, to the people that are in receipt of these services or on Medicaid or any other health benefit or financial benefit that our country offers. And so for one, it would be sustainability and making sure that the current services that we have are sustainable. They are consistent with the quality standards that I want across the organization and sustainable for our workforce. So I think that's number one. And then I think it's about pivoting. It's about becoming less reliant upon these federal fundings or state funding. So how do I ensure that my services are self-sustainable? How do I make partnerships with donors, corporate foundations, partnership organizations to make sure that we can stand alone, right? Because we're no longer going to be able to be reliant upon these type of routine funding systems, right? And then consistently making individuals that we support as independent and self-sufficient as possible, and less reliant upon whether that is a SNAP benefit or the Medicaid system, right? And so I think that's number one. I think sustainability is number one, especially because of the attack that Medicaid and all of our systems are experiencing right now. But also looking at meeting the needs. The needs of the people that we support are always changing. So the needs that I saw 18 years ago entering to our organization are not the same. Like the population of the people with lived experience is changing, right? They're just as into social media and AI and higher education and all the things, right? And so we have to make sure that we are consistently innovating to meet the needs of the changing population. And so it is just always strategic planning. It's always doing an environmental scan of where the next niche will be. I am a very strategic leader, so I tend not to do anything knee-jerk. I want to make sure that my core services are sustainable before I look at what's next. But at the end of the day, really, the people we support drive what I do. That's been the culture of Rock Creek. Like, we've always been innovative and we've always taken the direction of the people we support. So that's where I am.
Love that. You're having too much fun, it sounds like. It sounds like you guys are having too much fun. I'll leave with this blind question as we start to wrap things up.
Sure.
What was that one moment in your life that didn't feel like success at the time, but looking back at it, you actually realized it changed everything?
I would say my childhood, honestly. I could look back at my life and I would tell anyone, like, my childhood, I would not consider successful. The things that I've experienced, even in my core family network, right, I would not consider successful. One thing that really, really sticks out is me losing my brother. My brother was murdered in 2008. And I really thought that was the end. I was like in the middle of my master's program. I was living here in Maryland alone. You know, all my family's in New York, and I was just like, yeah, like this is it, right? But it really propelled me. Like I was really able to like just reflect on, I think, what he would have wanted from me as his younger sister and as my older brother. And I was really able to hold on to that and say, I'm going to use this experience to propel me to ensure that I do something different. So no matter what I experienced in my childhood, no matter what I still experience potentially when I go home around certain family members, I have the right to be different. I've been given different opportunities, and so there are different expectations that people may have of me, seeing that what I may have, what opportunities I may have been given, but also what I have on myself. So if I had to look at anything that I've been through, it would be that. That was like the lowest, most pits of hell point I think I ever was at, and I really had to change it to work for my good, honestly.
What a way to end the story to tell. And I'm pretty sure your brother is hella proud of
Thank you.
just how you picked yourself up at that time and then where you're at today. Like, hella proud.
Thank you.
And I can imagine there's a lot of people that don't give you your flowers, you know, because people out of pride or ego, but gotta respect someone that built themselves the table, right? Built opportunity for themselves, because we, as mentioned, no one gave you this. Statistically, you probably shouldn't even be in the seat that you're in today.
I'm the first black woman, well, first African American person and woman to ever be seated as the CEO and president of Rock Creek, and Rock Creek has been around for 52 years. So,
Hey, breaking barriers. I love it. Yes. Well, listen, where can people follow more about Rock Creek's journey? What's the website, socials?
sure, www.rockcreek.org. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and you can follow us, the Rock Creek Foundation. You can follow me. I am on LinkedIn at Najla Wortham. So we will be very excited to share our journey, our mission, our impact with anyone that is interested. So please follow, link up.
Najla, thank you so much. For those that are still watching, make sure you guys subscribe, comment, share this with somebody else, man. We're talking to leaders all around the world, sharing insight of what's happening day to day in their organizations, how they're scaling, how they're pivoting, how they got into the seats that they're in today. My name's Ephraim. This is Najla. We'll catch you on the next one. Laters.
Thank you.